The first strategy I'm going to talk about with answering these questions, these reading questions, is going to be something I'm calling predicting the answer. So what I mean by that is I'm just going to delete these choices. I'll move them down here for now. If you're taking the test, obviously you can't highlight and delete something. You're just going to have to cover up the possible answers. And I'm going to just predict what I think the answer might be. So I'm not even going to look at the multiple choice things. I'm not going to give my mind the chance to guess what these, to approach these things. I'm just going to think ahead of time, what will the answer look like? So the first question, the figurative language used in lines 9 through 11 suggests. And without looking at the answer choices, I'm going to look at 9 through 11, look for figurative language. Remember, figurative language is something that's not literal. If I say, oh my God, I could eat a horse, we know that's figurative because you can't actually eat a horse. Figurative is when we describe things that can't be to give a better picture of things that are. So 9 through 11, here's the section. When air moves inward towards a silent core of waiting, how with a single purpose time has traveled through currents of unguessed fatality. All right, so I'm picturing air moving inward. Let's see what this image is like. It's sort of imagery that's happening here, and it's sort of a metaphorical picture. So I'm thinking that figurative language in this line suggests how when we look inside ourselves, because air is moving inward to our inner section, that, it's sort of contrasting the outside to the inside. Unguessed fatality, there's this sense of uncertain fate into this polar realm. Okay, so we look inside ourselves, we find uncertain fate or destiny within. Let's look at the choices. I'm looking to see if any answer choice looks anything at all like the one I just typed. So this is the one I just typed. Suggests is the anticipation of life's challenges. Maybe, because we're looking inside ourselves and trying to find an answer. Questioning of life's meaning. She's not really asking a question about it. It's possible, but we can think more about that. Appreciation of patience. This looks nothing at all like what I just wrote down. Importance of solitude. Again, this looks nothing at all like, there's nothing about patience or solitude in here. So these, I'm just going to say, are no. I'm going to get rid of them. I'll just make them bold so that I remember or I'll make them like italicized so I know that they're not right. Questioning or anticipating now gives me at least, they both seem pretty nice answers, but even if this is as far we've gotten rid of half of the choices by guessing. I'll get back to that. I know the answer, but I'm going to get back to it. The repetition of whether in line 13 is to imply. Now I've mentioned this already. Whether abroad and whether in the heart alike come on regardless of prediction. So whether or not you see it coming, whether that appears outside or whether that appears inside of us, is going to happen whether or not we see it coming. Things are going to come to us. So there's a contrast between what's outside and what's inside. So I'm going to say that the repetition is there to contrast external and internal forces or uncertainty. Let's see what the choices were. The purpose of repetition is to imply an uncommon occurrence. I don't really see anything about this that's like an uncommon. It seems like very frequently something that's happening between what's outside and inside. A personal connection. I did mention there's something external, she's seeing the weather coming on, and something internal. So that is a personal connection. So I'm liking this. I'm going to put a bold here and say this looks a little bit like what I'm saying. A beneficial circumstance. I don't know what's beneficial about this weather. I think that about the difference between, she's talking about things that are uncertain and fatal and kind of grim and dark. An unexplained phenomenon. This sounds a little close to it, but it's not really a contrast between what's outside and inside. I'm saying a personal connection is probably the best answer. It's probably the one that is showing you a connection between the outside and inside. The wind will rise. We can only close the shutters. Means that because I annotated, I already said this. Lines 21, we can't control the weather. We can only lock ourselves away from it. So basically it's saying that can hide from problems, but we can't, basically we can't control them. So we have limited control over the forces outside of us. So let's see what the choices are. Can overcome problems by denying them. That's actually the opposite of what we're saying. We're saying we can't overcome problems by denying them. We can only doing that. So I'm going to say no. Can predict our emotions, but we can learn to ignore them. There's a difference between like ignoring them and like shuttering. She's not ignoring the weather. She's blocking and protecting herself from it. So this does not sound right to me. It doesn't sound like my guess. Can control events by understanding them. Again, this is the opposite of what I said. I said we can hide from things, but we can't control it. Cannot prevent our distress, but we choose how to deal with it. I think this is exactly like my guess. This is precisely what I wrote down. This is great. Lines 27 and 28 convey a sense of. This, when I say a sense of, I'm looking for questions that relate to feeling and tone and mood. So let's see what 27 and 28 are. These are the things we've learned to do who live in zones of much inquietude. So I'm guessing it feels like a sense of sort of hopelessness and dealing with it. Just a sense of something that would be, because I'm probably going to look for a word here, dealing with the dark forces in the world, knowing we can't control things. So it's some word that relates to this. It's sort of accepting things here. Okay, so what do I have? I have disinterest, urgency, acceptance, and terror. Now, this is not exactly terror. I said dealing with it, it's dark forces, there's something dark about it, but I said dealing with those forces. So it's not like we're terrified about things. We know that it's there, so I'm not thinking it's that. Urgency. There's nothing you can do, so why would you be urgent? Why would you be impatient? Like, this has to get done, this has to get done. It's not there. Disinterest. Is that like what my guess was? Dealing with dark forces. We know we can't control it, but it's outside. There's weather beating. We have to close ourselves inside. Already, without even looking at this choice, it feels good. But dealing with dark forces, that's the same as accepting things. That's the same as, what we have to do. And yeah, I did 4 questions for you using that. Should I do one more? Why not? The narrative views storms as, basically, I've talked about this as I've read it, things that happen that we can't control, but we can cope with, because we have to, basically. That's how I'm feeling about the poem, what it's saying. So let's look at these having unpredictable results. They do have unpredictable results, but that's might be the point. We can hold on to that. Being frightening experiences. Yeah, they're frightening, but I mean, she was reading a book, she was looking out at the storm, she was more thoughtful than terrified, she's not hiding under the bed. They do, being familiar events. This is possible, because she's saying it's something outside and it's something inside, it's something we sort of cope with. There's both these metaphorical storms of the outside world, and there's these sort of inside storms that we have. So it does sound good. Having destructive powers. This doesn't sound like a necessary function of the storm. It doesn't seem like a really necessary part of this. So I don't think that's right. I think 3 is right. So I skipped over this one, and I recommend you skip over things if they're giving you trouble. But I did have it narrowed down to 2. So let's look at this. Now that we've looked at all these questions, maybe we have a better idea. The questions help us look at the poem a little more. So what's happening? When we look in figurative language in lines 9 through 11, more anticipating challenges or questioning meaning? I would say, because a lot of it is like what we're doing, we're making predictions, seeing storms coming, finding it. This sounds a lot more like anticipation. There's not really anything about the meaning of life in these questions. There's nothing there. So I got, from doing the strategy of guessing the answer first, I got answer 1, answer 2, answer 4, 2, and 3. And I am correct. Good job, me.